Something which is a bit of the hot client in this story about agriculture and food security. I'm talking about timber companies and about bushmeat. And it's not necessarily something that it's very high in the agenda, and it's stuck into high. Thank you. But it's a very important issue. And the question is, because we are talking in an issue of can we manage system for food and wildlife and for wild relative, and we have this issue of the timber and biodiversity in the Congo Basin. The Congo Basin is the second largest block of rainforest remaining in the world. A great part of this rainforest is allocated for timber concession. This timber concession, they do what they know what to do, so they harvest for timber. But at the same time, there is a lot of other things that are happening in this timber concession, including hunting for bushmeat, some NTFP collection, something. And what we are looking at is, can we manage this timber concession for multiple use and not only for timber, in order to have a more optimal use of the land and reduce the needs. So briefly, if you look at the recent study in 2011, I mean, if you look at the Congo Basin, what we can call ordinary land is about 450,000 kilometers square. This is non-gazetted land, is place where people do shifting cultivation, where there are some plantations. Logging concession is 600,000 kilometers square. Protected area is 440,000 kilometers square. So that's to show you the importance of considering logging concession. It is the largest land use type in the region. So if we just ignore this and go into protected area or and go outside, then we are missing a great part of the picture. A quick slide about selective logging in the Congo Basin. Timber remains the main commodity. It's highly selective, so they cut less than 2 individuals of less than 5 commercial species. So it's very selective, so it's not clear cutting. A forest after a first logging does not appear immensely disturbed, but the rotation cycle about 25-30 years, which is too short. And there is an increasing area under certification. We started to work in 1995. We had 0 managed forests, 0 certified forests. Now we have about 11 million hectares of forest under management plan. 3 million hectares of forest under concession. This is increasing. So, there is a direct link between the intensity of harvest and the quality of the residual forest, and where it is important in terms of biodiversity and other aspects like wildlife and wild relative. And then you see that certified concession, in fact, have a significantly reduced harvest intensity. As such, because they have a significantly reduced harvest intensity, they have a significantly less impact on the residual stand and on species other than timber, which could be rattan, that could be fruit trees, that could be including wildlife. And then I will not comment very much this one, but what you see is that it's a principal component analysis on 30 over concession, and the concession that have no plan, no management plan, and not engaged into certification have no consideration at all for any biodiversity or food-related issue. The one that are preparing a management plan, they start to have a little bit of consideration of biodiversity. The one with a management plan area and the certified area. So although certification is not perfect, certified concession have more explicit rules to manage other things than timber and to protect other things than timber. Now, if we move to the issue of timber and wildlife, what's the reason? I mean, sort of, as it is now, the current harvest of bushmeat in the Congo Basin is about 5 million tons per year. It's a large amount. If we went to convert that in terms of, okay, let's ask the people to stop hunting and to raise cattle, we will have to deforest about 25 million hectares of forest to make pasture. This is clearly not possible for various other reasons. So we can probably have some alternative use, raise chicken, raise pigs, something like that. But in the end, and because 30 to 80% of the protein intake come from this bushmeat, what we need is we need to manage the wild resources, and we need to manage the wild resources in a system working with the systems that are existing now, or what are the systems that are existing now? It's protected area, so you're not going to allow people to hunt into protected area and timber concession. These are the two main systems we have in terms of a formal system in the Congo Basin. I'm not talking about the shifting cultivation where people do garden hunting and something, because it's more or less, I would say, under control as long as the population doesn't increase too much. But there are a lot of problems in terms of managing bushmeat and in logging concession. The issue, the classical one, bad governance, influence of elite and corruption, the lack of motivation for the logging company. I mean, sort of why should they bother? Unclear definition and responsibility among stakeholders. I mean, sort of you will talk to the logging manager and he will tell you, my job is to harvest the timber, is not to manage the local people or any other one that is coming here to hunt the animals. And then there was some specific solution that were proposed during a workshop with the colleague of traffic colleague in Libreville, and about sensitization, strengthening local governance, strengthening law enforcement, create incentives to encourage the private sector. Nothing really new, but I mean things that we have been keeping repeating as a mantra for the last 25 years, and that we are not doing. Conservation is doing conservation, logging is doing logging, and nobody is talking to nobody. Other type of solution, of course, there are additional costs. Then we can work in terms of additional funding, reallocating logging revenue. There is this issue of the high demand of bushmeat from urban area. So that's more this issue of the knowledge and the entry point in the market chain, in the value chain, which is a sort of another story. And we have also a lack of validated scientific method to monitor wildlife, which makes an issue difficult. I mean, when you go to a place of forest, I mean, one method, you will see that there are 3 duikers per kilometer square. With another method, in the same place, you have 15 duikers per kilometer square. And if you do something else, you have 50. So you don't know which is the right value. Very difficult to assess sustainability because you don't have the resource base. You don't have the resource base, you don't know how much you can take out from the resource base if you want to have sustainability. So that implies that we move a little bit beyond boundaries outside of the logging concession, looking at the landscape issue, for which theory says that it's totally absent on the discourse so far in terms of food security and sustainability. And why do we need a landscape approach? Because wildlife moves contrary to trees. Conserving protected area alone will not work, only because we have these big areas that are not conserved. And because you are surprisingly close neighbor. That's the map of Gabon. And what you see here are all logging concession. And what you see, what you see in ash yellow is protected area. So you see that they are very close. And if you look at where you find flagship spaces, this is National Park, logging concession, hunting area. And you see that the number of ape, as gorilla and chimpanzee, is very high in a protected area in Batanga, but the next one is the Unité Forestière d'Aménagement, which is a logging concession in North Congo. So, and you see that you have some of the national park that have a very low density, so we have this sort of strange thing happening in the Congo Basin, that because there are more financial means, more things behind the logging concession become somewhat better managed for preserving biodiversity than the national park that are just nearby. So that's why it is interesting to work together and trying to develop, which is something like an integrated production and conservation territory, where you will combine several types of land use, not focusing only on managing your logging, not focusing on managing your protected area, not focusing on managing your community forest, but try to do something, a little bit of everything at the same time, which means that you will probably do everything suboptimally, but it's, for me, it's probably what you can call the best definition of sustainability, is that you don't try to do everything perfectly at the maximum at every place. You try to do whatever you can do so that you can do it for a very long time, but that means that you are going to have less timber, you are going to have a little bit less of protected area, you are going to a little bit less of everything, but overall you have more than if you would have if you had spared the land and do everything intensively everywhere. So You have a protected area. This protected area is just neighbor of a certified logging concession. You have community forest in the landscape, municipal forest, people doing hunting, gathering, and there is a lot of informal sector for whatever. You can also have agro-industry. People will plant for oil palm. It's a very, very, very lucrative thing. It's a good product. Oil palm is a good product. I have nothing against palm oil fundamentally, but depends where it is, how it is made. And then you have the urban social space that is generally driving what is happening in the rural space because the demand is in the urban area. And in the Congo Basin, like in the Amazon, in fact, this large wilderness, 80% of the people are living in town. We have less and less people living in the rural area and more people living in town, and these towns are more and more sucking resources from them. And the idea is to create something which is like an enterprise which manage this certified logging concession protected agro-industry and to provide both environmental services, more local income, some tax and fiscal revenue for the government, and to allow sustaining a rural population on the spot, avoiding people escaping to towns all the time. So this is sort of the idea of the system we could manage. There are very few examples of that, actually, at this stage. One that is existing for a few years has been the Iwo-Krama area in the Guyana, but in the Congo Basin there are very few of these. You need a few basic rules to do that. You need to realize the economic potential of the conservation site, so you should not set aside area for conservation and forget them. I mean, you should make money out of the conservation. You should manage the informal sector. That's the point of managing the hunting or fishing or hunting. And managing doesn't mean you should have a sort of a blanket rule saying you should not hunt. No, you should manage so that we can hunt things that are rodents, resilient species, and we should protect species that need to be protected. And you need to reinvest part of the income generated by the industrial production site to the conservation area for reciprocal benefits. And you have this issue of forest certification. It costs money, so most of the time to do that you need starting funds. It needs the willingness of the production sector to engage into certification or other biodiversity-friendly practices. You need the willingness of the conservation community to collaborate and support the private sector. This is not always the case. We are getting there. I mean, there are more and more of this private-public partnership around this type. And you need political support and a reasonable governance regime. And in the Congo Basin, I mean, there is this Congo Basin Forest Partnership where they have identified these 12 huge landscapes for shared production and conservation and management of forests. This is the one on Maringa Lopori Wamba, which is managed by our colleague of African Wildlife Foundation. And they are developing an integrated management plan where you have a protected area, you have logging concession, you have indigenous land, you have a catchment area, trying in a sense to have a little bit of everything managed in a reasonably coordinated way in a very difficult place, and they are having some progress. So this is one good example that is starting in the Congo Basin. And in the end, if conclude, I think that it's possible to manage for both timber, biodiversity, and food security, but that requires some new thinking in terms of land use type and public-private partnership, and a renewed sector long-term support for the international donor community. Thank you.